Charlie Munger, the billionaire partner of Warren Buffett, loves to use this principle or mental model whenever he thinks through a difficult decision. He would say this: invert, always invert. And today, as we think about how to communicate successfully at the workplace, maybe we can use this principle of inversion, where we invert how to be successful to how to get sacked. How do you communicate so that you get sacked? Well, you might be wondering if I've ever had that experience. Well, I have many times. So in 2016, I got sacked from Google when I was working as a subcontractor for them. And then later in my first workplace, I also got this performance improvement plan, which is basically a shape up or a ship out plan. Basically, it said that I was bad at relationships and that if I didn't change this, I would have to leave. I would have to leave. So you might be wondering, who am I to talk to you if I've gotten into these troubles over the past few years? Well, because precisely I've gotten sacked, I think that gives me a good idea of what you should not do if you do not want to get sacked. If you want to be successful at communicating, then this is the lesson for you. Today, I wanted to share with you 3 things I did to get sacked so that you won't do them and you will be more successful at communicating in your workplace. Well, the first thing to do to get sacked is to communicate your disagreements openly. At my first workplace, I had a disagreement with a manager. She was the number 2 in the organization, just below the CEO. And I walked up to her and expressed my disagreement about something that she had done. This was perhaps wise in the context of a personal one-to-one, but this was in the full sight of other colleagues in the office. It wasn't wise. You might think that this is brash of a 25-year-old, but at that point in time, I thought it was the most important thing that I could do to bring up my disagreements openly. After all, aren't we taught to do that? Well, yes and no. You see, when I went there, I was angry. I didn't have a handle on my own emotions. And that was a definite recipe for disaster. Today, if you are tempted to do something rash, to bring up your disagreement openly, let me tell you the lesson I learned from that. The lesson I learned is that no one can make you feel or do something. You have the choice to manifest what you want in your actions. You can feel all these feelings inside you or these thoughts in your mind, but it is your choice whether you bring those thoughts and feelings into life through your actions. So today, what might be better ways? Well, look at taking a time to breathe and then to identify the feelings inside you. Each of us have different triggers and each of us have different reactions when we are triggered. For some, that might be a rising heart rate. For others, that might be tunnel vision. For some, that might be even physical tension. Well, whatever your thing is, make sure that you are aware of it and that you are able to identify it the next time around. Then after you breathe for 5 minutes, and then you take the time to identify the reactions within you, then take the time to process what is inside you. If you are feeling so angry, might not be the best time to bring up a disagreement. So take the time to take a piece of paper and pen in a notebook, right? And then to write it all down. Pen and paper is often the best thing because it is a form of catharsis where you are able to process your emotions and allow it to flow out of you. So that's the first part on communicating disagreement. Realize this, that no one can make you feel or do anything, but it is your choice and how much power you decide to give to it. The second thing to do if you want to get sacked is to give the silent treatment. Once I had a conflict with a colleague. Probably sounds familiar, but I chose not to talk to him for the next 6 months, ignoring his messages, his attempts to talk to me in the office, and treating him basically like he was invisible, like he didn't exist, like he didn't matter. The silent treatment is action or conflict resolution method that many of us employ. But the thing is that it's not resolving the conflict. You will realize that even after silent treatment for 6 months, you will still have that conflict, right? Doesn't resolve anything at all. So what might be a better way? Well, look at these three examples. Firstly, take the time to ask yourself, do I want this to continue for another year? When you start thinking about this, you start projecting your suffering, your current suffering into the future and asking yourself, do I want this suffering to continue? And if I don't, then what are the steps that I can take to change this? Secondly, take the time to address your conflict. I know, this probably sounds difficult, but if you do it successfully, it is a very healing process. There's no right or wrong way to do it, but there are certain guidelines that can help. So, firstly, use I statements. Talk about how you felt by that person's actions. For example, you might say, I felt hurt and disappointed when you assigned me work without asking if I had the capacity to take on that work. I felt disappointed when you sent out an email to tell everyone about my mistakes. It made me feel I felt publicly humiliated by that. Now you see the difference, right? Instead of taking a blaming stance where we say, you did this, you did that, you take a I stance where you talk about your own feelings. I felt this because you did this. It no longer becomes a point of judgment, but it becomes a point of helping the other person be aware of what you did. The last thing is to look at your locus of control. In Stephen Covey's great book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he talks about how we have 3 locuses. The locus of control, which is what we can do to change things. The locus of influence, or the circle of influence around us, that we can influence other people to do things. Mind you, we can't change them, but we can influence them. And then the last one is the circle of awareness. Well, this circle of awareness is just things that you cannot change. You absolutely cannot change, cannot do anything about it. It's like the weather, right? Or your colleagues' behavior. You have no way to change that. And in the Albinger Institute's outward mindset, they talk about this question. What if, as far as I'm concerned, I was the problem? And I might add, if I was the possibility. Do they think about what you can do to change things? If you're sick and tired of prolonging this unnecessary suffering, then think about, what can I do to change things? And as painful as it sounds, writing an email, addressing a conflict, in the long run, it can be a healing process. Last but not least, if you want to get sacked, treat work like a transaction. In my first 6 months of working, I treated work like an ATM, punch my card in and pull my card out and get money, isn't it? It's easy to treat work like a transaction, like an ATM, where it's no longer relational, not based on relationships, but it becomes an entirely transactional thing. In my first 6 months, I was spending lunchtimes alone, meditating in a room and thinking about life. Well, that wasn't the most helpful in building relationships that would help me to flourish at work and to help my work to flourish. But today, I'm not asking you to have friends at work, to have lifelong buddies at work. I'm asking you to treat work as a relationship, as a relational place where you can relate to colleagues. Take the time to go out with them for lunch. And as basic as this sounds, take the time to ask them, how are you? And not just as a pleasantry, but to really ask them, like, how are you really? Take time to be interested in their lives outside of work, their hobbies, what they do. Ask about their weekend. You know, all these simple things might seem really simple, but they help us to establish work, not as a place where we are just transacting, but as a place where we are relating. Not as a place where we are transacting, but as a place where we are relating, person to person. Amongst the Zulu people in South Africa, they have this greeting, I see you. And then the other person says, I am here to be seen. Today, I want to ask you, are you open, honest, and vulnerable in your workplace? Are you showing up with all of yourself? I'm not asking you to cry on your colleague's shoulder, but I'm asking you to build a group of 1 or 2 friends where you feel like you can share openly with them and where you feel like you can do things together with them. Different people might have different beliefs in the workplace, different goals and achievements that they want. But if you find 1 or 2 what which can work with you on certain projects, then you begin to find life in the workplace. In conclusion, these 3 things: treating work as a relationship, not as a transaction, thinking about your locus of control, and last but not least, addressing conflicts in a productive manner will help you to make relationships at work and communication at work more successful. One evening, as I went up to my manager to apologize to her for having that open disagreement I talked about, I could see her eyes soften. I could see her tone becoming more warm. And you know, in that instance, that's when I began to realize that as far as work is concerned, yes, we are different people and we are definitely going to step on each other's toes. We all have different working styles. But what matters is, at the end of the day, the relationships. It's not only the work, it is the relationships. Don't make work a torture ground where you are just punching in and punching out for money. Make work a place where you enjoy. And that starts with relationships. I hope this helps and let me know what you thought of it. Thank you.